Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I am OXM and today we're talking about one of the infamous gacha games. The game I'll be talking about is Azur Lane. Now guys, we know why you download games of this kind. It's obviously for the great mechanics, extensive events, and the feeling of progression. Yeah, sure. We both know why you're here. You want the content, that character design, and obviously special touch codes. Well, my fellow admirals, today I'm going to give you a lesson about the history of Azur Lane. Kind of. Now this is more of a vision of the general situation that sits in game, the motivations of each faction, their leaders, and the aesthetics of each group. Now, let's start. The worldview. The official Azur Lane page offers us a very short but complete history of the situation of the world. It mentions the importance of the oceans for humanity, since all life on Earth started there. However, as humanity started to grow, their ambitions did the same, leading to conflicts and war. It was after this that the mysterious enemy, known as the Sirens, started to emerge from another dimension. They made quick work at taking control of the oceans, leaving humanity with only a 10% of safe waters. It was after this that the international organization known as Azur Lane was founded, with the objective of gathering resources and weapons to drive back the Sirens. With this information, we need to divide the histories that each game mode tells us. First, the history campaign is a recapitulation of the war in the Pacific between the US Navy and the Imperial Japanese Navy during World War II. Second is the history from the events. This includes the intervention of the Sirens during their experiments at watching humanity as how they combat each other and some minor invasions made by the Sirens. There are many groups in the two factions that take part in the history. Let's look at each one of them. We start with the Eagle Union. This group is the representation of the US Navy in this world. Conformed by all kinds of ships, this group is noted by their powerful battleships, state-of-the-art carriers, and effective destroyers. Some examples are the South Dakota class for battleships, the Yorktown and Essex class for aircraft carriers, and the Fletcher class for destroyers. This nation concentrated their strength on developing aircraft carriers and powerful heavy cruisers, which grants them the upper hand when it comes to air superiority and open naval combat. Having repair ships as their auxiliary allows to regenerate health in battle. Eagle Union represents the true spirit of freedom. This is what the loading screen tells us about this group, with a mix of gameplay mechanics thrown in there. This group doesn't have an obvious flagship, so we will go with Enterprise for the matter. She's declared as the strongest carrier among all the fleets and of course the poster girl for the game. Their aesthetics can vary depending on their squadron or class. Their callout is USS. The Eagle Union is an original member of Azur Lane. Along with the Royal Navy, they are the backbone of the attack fleet against the Sirens and the Crimson Axis. Their ideals of freedom and fair fight are pretty fitting for what navy they're based on. The Royal Navy is a representation of the British Royal Navy in this world. They have all kinds of ships except submarines and repair ships. They have a famous reputation for their battleships, carriers, and light cruisers. Some examples are the King George class for battleships, the Illustrious class for armored carriers, and the Town class for light cruisers. When it comes to proper shipbuilding, Royal Navy is often ahead of their opponents due to their long and glorious history of navigation. The faith in Her Majesty, the Queen, and rich battle experience helps them to build ships with perfectly balanced performance. If you wish for peace, prepare for war. The loading screen of the Royal Navy gives us an overview of their ships and how good they are due to years of experience in naval combat. This group has a defined leader, and that is the battleship Queen Elizabeth. All kinds of ships among the different groups know about her and also respect her. Even with this, Queen Elizabeth is an elite rare ship, different from the rest of leaders that normally are super rare. The aesthetics of this group vary depending on the kind of ship they are. For example, destroyers are dressed as students, light cruisers and some heavy cruisers are maids, battleships and carriers are the nobility and sometimes royalty. Their callout is HMS. Royal Navy is also one of the core members of the Azur Lane, fighting mostly the Ironblood, Baqia Dominion, and Sardegna Empire. The Ironblood are the representation of the Kriegsmarine of Nazi Germany during World War II, having all kinds of ships except repair ships. The Ironblood are merciless, with powerful and notable battleships, heavy cruisers, and destroyers, like the feared Bismarck class of battleships, the Admiral Hipper class of heavy cruisers, and the Type 1936A class, also known for the C number class of destroyers. There flows no soft blood in their veins, for they shall feel no mercy and no pain. Once a member of the Azur Lane, these ruthless sharks have now allied themselves with the Sirens and decided to play with the soft jellyfishes no more, knowing that peace and love are just for weaklings. However, their betrayal is a necessity, for peace can never protect humanity from the unknown. Hail Ironblood! The loading screen of the Ironblood talks us about how they act and what happened for them to be considered the enemy after allying themselves with the Sirens. The leader of this faction is Bismarck, considered one of the scariest battleships at the time. She gained the respect and admiration of other members of the Iron Blood. She even has a submarine, U-556, as her self-proclaimed squire, and that is the cutest thing ever. This group's aesthetics is one of the most notable, with color patterns in black, red, and golden ornaments. The battle riggings of all these characters have something in common. That is, the shark heads that appear in different forms and sizes through all of the members of the Iron Blood. Their callout is KMS. The Iron Blood are allied with the Sakura Empire in a coalition called the Crimson Axis, mainly fighting against the Royal Navy. They have proven to be a notable menace to the factions in Azur Lane, creating an all-out war in two fronts, one against the Sirens and another against Azur Lane. The Sakura Empire is the representation of the Imperial Japanese Navy during World War II, being one of the most numerous factions. The Sakura Empire comes with all kinds of ships, numerous carriers, nimble destroyers, and powerful battleships, like the Akagi-class carriers, the Shiratsuyu-class destroyers, and the Nagato-class battleships. Shrouded in a mysterious fog and falling sakura petals, a beautiful island feigns sleep, silently, waiting for its turn to tremble the world. When the day came, the sky was darkened with its fighters, the ocean was reddened with its torpedoes, and mankind's fear was defined by a new name, the Sakura Empire. The loading screen of the Sakura Empire tells us about their origin and how they revealed themselves to the world. It's never stated that this group ever allied with the Azur Lane, only allying themselves with the Sirens and confirming the other major power within the Crimson Axis. The leader of the Sakura Empire is the battleship Nagato. Depicted as a major shrine maiden, her creators limited her knowledge of the world and limited her just to retain the idea of protecting her people. However, she is a powerful battleship with the power of other major leaders, being one of the so-called Big Seven. This select group of ships have the biggest caliber weapons ever put in a battleship. This faction has the most noticeable aesthetics. All the ships have animal ears or horns. Even some are depicted as demons. There are a few exceptions, but their outfits are very extensive, from schoolgirls, military officers, shrine maidens, ninjas, and school swimsuits. There's something for everyone. Their callout is IGN. Well guys, that makes all the major groups. We shall look now at the smaller ones. Since they're not represented a lot in the game, there may be a lack of information. Don't worry, I'll try to make the most of it. Enjoy! The Eastern Radiance is a small group that represents the Chinese Navy at the start of the 50s, being a small group of 7 ships. They don't have the numbers to fight major superpowers and work together to stand their ground against them. All the destroyers are Anshan class, and their light cruisers are Ninhai and Yatsen class. The ancient realm of East Radiance was a peaceful homeland to Eastern people. Until the war came, struggled with their outdated technology, they fall, yet with their diligence and intelligence they rise again. Just like the dawn always will. The loading screen for the Eastern Radiance tells us about their downfall during the war. However, they rise once again to fight alongside Azur Lane. This faction has no leader, due to being so small. Strange, since there are other minor factions who have a leader, but it seems this one doesn't have a big ship to fill this position. Their aesthetics have a short and traditional range, mainly military uniforms and Chinese dresses, with their companions, like pandas. Their callout is ROC. The North Union is the smallest faction in the game. It represents the Russian Navy. They count only one light cruiser, Aurora, and she is currently unavailable. The Northern Parliament was built upon corporalist ideals, the source of her people's strength and solidarity. Their fleet has not been active within the Azur Lane for some time now, with some reports claiming that they are tied up with the Sirens in the polar regions. The aesthetics are not worth mentioning since it's only one character. Better save all for her dedicated video. She likes vodka though, and that's nice. Let's just hope Joestar decides to make more characters for this faction. I refuse to believe there's no material for new characters. The Baqia Dominion is a representation of the Baqia France during World War II, making contrast with the Iris Libre as a remnant of the Irish Orthodoxy. Their most notable ships are battleships from the Richelieu and Dunkirk class, making them have more firepower than their counterparts from the Iris Libre, a faction born out of the collapse of the Irish Orthodoxy. The Baqia Dominion was once part of Iris's Templar Knights. They have since joined the Crimson Axis. The login screen, though short, tells us about how the Baqia Dominion ended as a part of the Crimson Axis. The apparent leader of this faction is Richelieu. She's not available, but we know she exists thanks to the full sprite that can be found within the game files. She also appears in some cutscenes in the Iris of Light and Dark event. However, Jim Bart is represented as the leader of this faction, This is because she decided to fight against Azur Lane in defense of her homeland. Their aesthetics are varied in their outfits, but their battle riggings present a combination of golden details and armored cannons not seen in other faction apart from the Iris. Their callout is MNF. The Iris Library is the representation of the Free French naval forces during World War II. This fleet is conformed by the French ships that escaped before the surrender. Their main force is full of destroyers, heavy cruisers, and even a submarine. When the former Irish Orthodoxy collapsed, some of their naval forces, the Templar Knights, joined Azur Lane in hopes of rebuilding their fallen country. The newly formed Irish Library now stands opposed to both the Baqia Dominion and Ironblood. The other side of the coin, making contrast with the Dominion, this faction is represented as religious fighters, making them the Crusaders of this world. The leader of the Irish is supposed to be the same as the Baqia Dominion, Richelieu. However, there's another unavailable ship, Jean d'Arc, as the leader of the Irish. Sadly enough, both of these leaders appeared in cutscenes only. St. Louis appears in the loading screen for this faction, making her the only PR ship to appear in a loading screen. Their aesthetics are more defined than their counterparts in the Dominion, with elegant dresses and a medieval feel in their battle riggings. Their callout is FFNF. The Sardegna Empire is the representation of the Regia Marina of Italy. It's the most recent faction, so much they don't have a loading screen with a piece of their history yet. They count with heavy cruisers and battleships, like the heavy armored Sarah class and the powerful Littorio class. This faction appears to have two leaders. Those are Littorio and Vittorio Veneto, with one being the strategist and the other the frontline commander. Vittorio is not available in-game, but she appears in the cutscenes of the Imperial Tragicomedy event. The aesthetics of this faction are very elegant. All members use a military uniform with different colors. One constant in all of them is the cape present in all of the members. Their callout is RN. And there you have it, all the factions currently available in Azur Lane. This is my first video, so I'm inexperienced. If you like that, makes me happy. Press that like button if you think it's that good. Subscribe for more videos about your favorite ship-based game. I think next I will make a resume of what the Azur Lane anime tells us about the world. I don't know. That's all for today, and I'll see you commanders in the next one.